don't ID anybody. So we're going to cut the shreds.
Ah, this is good. The guys in this band, you couldn't ask for a better bunch to work with, except they all smell.
This is your quote? Good job, Jeff. Give me that fucking magazine.
No, we don't need to go to the album either. It's all-
No, I just made up that last
Oh,
part.
that was good.
I tell them no.
Okay.
They're all mad at me because I made this comment once about being on a tour bus with 10 smelly guys, you know, and I've never been able to live it down. They don't really smell that bad.
Here we go. It's rolling. Anytime.
Okay, the magazine gone.
Okay, wait a minute. Who are we looking at?
Okay, you should look towards me.
Oh, yeah.
The camera will pick you up. Okay? And I addressed the questions to both of you, but you can both answer. Number one, rock and roll, especially metal, has more than its share of concept albums. But Operation Mindcrime is different from like a King Diamond or Iron Maiden because it's about the times we live in now. Comments on politics, religion, a breakdown of our society. Can you give me like a brief summary of the characters and the plot?
Oh, this is a serious question, huh? You get to take it.
Thanks, Jeff. Well, the story centers around three main characters, and one of them, I guess our leading man, is a young person by the name of Nikki, who has been brainwashed by one of the other characters, Dr. X, into joining this subversive revolution that is a vision of a better way by this new Dr. X. And he's manipulated into some rather violent deeds to achieve these goals of Dr. X. And Sister Mary, who is the third character in this story, is a former prostitute turned nun. And she is sort of Nikki's salvation and also love interest in the story. So as you can see, it's sort of the basic rock and roll type lyrical approach to an album. And
that's the brief synopsis.
yes, that's trying to condense it. It's kind of hard, but that's it.
What's amazing to me is that your album is so relentlessly dark. There's no happy ending or even like a ray of hope. Was there any thought or pressures to lighten up at some point in the story?
We kept looking for that elusive bit of comedy, but it just wouldn't happen.
No, it just,
We're kind of saving that for the next record, maybe.
yeah.
It's going to be a comedy album, I think.
Mhm.
Something very lighthearted and whimsical.
Warm, yeah.
I mean, I think that's what makes it more powerful is that you don't say, well, there's this that makes it better, it's that. I think it makes it all the more stronger that it's so dark. But it surprised me. Listening to it, I kept waiting for, okay, the next song will be, have an upside.
Well, I think we were just, the story just sort of progressed along, and as it got more involved, we thought that it would be a nice way to end the album, sort of with a few questions unanswered. There's, as we've been touring around and doing, in stores, and fans come up, and a lot of them are asking questions about the story, like who killed Mary, for instance. We've left these little loopholes in the album, and it's kind of fun to see, how people perceive it. But, I think it takes a few cynical jabs at, current society and events that have been going on over the last couple of years while we were writing the album, and then we sort of twisted it and transformed it into our own little, fictional mind crime, I guess is how you would sum it up.
Every character in your story is basically a pawn of someone. Everything okay, Nancy?
Yeah. Hey, Jeff.
Mm-hmm.
We just want to confirm you are
No, another
doing
Jeff.
the two-shot. Okay.
Sorry. Every character in your story is basically a pawn of someone or something. Do you think people, especially Americans, have allowed themselves to be manipulated by political leaders and televangelists and drugs?
Well, I think there's a lot of people out there who are looking for answers, whether it be political answers, religious answers, whatever. And, there's a lot of sheep, people who follow trends or other people's whims. And sometimes, it can lead to disaster, you know.
The album starts out with Nicky getting shot up with, I guess, a sedative. And in the story, that a drug is used by Dr. X to control his mind. I was wondering if the drug could be a metaphor for something else, other problems in our society or screwed up values or anything.
Actually, it's heroin.
It's just a drug.
It's just a way of life.
Is there anyone in the world today who you think closely resembles Dr. X, or is he based on any real figures?
Well, I guess it started out to be based on a group of people that we met when we were up in Montreal, who were sort of involved with overthrowing their government and ousting all the English-speaking people and bringing in sort of a French-controlled new government. And quite an interesting night drinking with these people and hearing their viewpoints. Anyway, that was sort of the inspiration for Dr. X, and I think we just sort of took it from there and expanded on it.
Is there some lesson you want people to walk away with from this album?
I think we were just, trying to, our first goal with the album is that we tend to write really well off of themes, and our other two albums before Operation Mindcrime were loosely sort of constructed around themes. And, we thought it would be very challenging for us to try and write an album that was one complete movement, both lyrically and musically. And we just sort of happened upon this rather violent, sordid tale and thought that, that certain comments that are made within the album aren't necessarily, the viewpoints of Queensryche, but, it's...
You mean like burn the White House down?
Things like that, I mean, it was kind of one of those days where we didn't have really any other better lyrics to come up with, except things like that. So, I mean, it's sort of to be taken, I guess, with a little bit of a grain of salt, it's not...
yeah, above all
we're not trying to preach.
It's a story.
Yeah, it's fictional.
But it is based on, a lot of events that occur, and, like any story, the exaggeration is part of it.
Well, it sounds like you're going to say no, but do you think society has degenerated to the point of mind crime yet, or do we still have a few years to go? How far from the truth is?
Well, I think that the events that happen in Mindcrime, certainly the way that it's happening in our album is sort of on a grand scale. But I think that, people play mind games with each other. People manipulate each other. It happens all the time. And, I think what we've done is kind of what Jeff just said, which is just sort of amplified it to the utmost extreme, And I think it's more of something to avoid than something to approach. I think that when people are so easily controlled by one another, in this instance, it's also, we have a song on there called "The Needle Lies," which is making a reference to being controlled by drugs, and that it's, I don't know, I guess it's a rather popular thing right now that a lot of people are letting, it takes over as the priority. And in this story, it's sort of the end-all for the two characters, because their dependency on this allows them to be manipulated, and then they're coerced into doing these horrible deeds, So I think, we're trying to point out things that are going on, but certainly, brainwashing people and controlling them isn't, I don't know, something that's probably so great. What do you think, Jeff?
I don't know. I've always sort of held this opinion that the media has a real extreme effect on people, and there's a responsibility from the media to approach, what they do seriously and try not to, let those temptations take over. And you can, if you really look into what's on TV nowadays, there's a lot of really, I don't know, sort of bizarre images, I guess you could say, that come across. And it's hard not to think that somebody's not thinking of mind control or some sort of
programming or
programming,
something.
you know. It's just too coincidental not to look at a little critically.
So we try and avoid all those techniques when recording our albums. Things like
No backwards maskings
no
here.
subliminal messages on our records.
Was the wall or Tommy an influence for you at all in writing the album?
I think probably in a, those are very old albums and ones that we sort of grew up with. And I think, I don't know, to approach doing something like The Wall or Tommy is, you know, it's quite an effort. And I really don't think we came close as far as putting out something as, you know, massive or conclusive as those two albums, especially. But, you know, I think...
certainly nice stars to sort of shoot towards.
Yeah,
you know?
That's a good way to put it.
I understand there was a lot of material you had to edit out of Operation, I guess, for Room. Does that mean there could be a continuation of the story on a future album?
Oh, Son of Mindcrime? Yeah. We're working on that now. I don't know. We're sort of looking for a different approach on the next record, and you know, we try not to duplicate ourselves, and we try to do something a little different each time.
We also tried to, I think, consider this time making this album that, you know, a large portion of the people that buy our music are buying cassettes or CDs, and we're not really limited to, you know, a certain amount of material. There was a small amount of consideration going into, well, we've got all this material, and if someone buys an album, it's going to sound horrible because it's, you know, it's so much material. But I mean, we kind of pulled a few ideas out of it, but it was, you know, not anything that really damaged the story. It was just...
Yeah, we're trying to make it concise, because with something like this, you can get really carried away with and end up with a triple album set of a lot of boring other stuff, you know, to take up time. And we tried to make it, excuse me, simplistic and concise, so the story would come across easier and people have an easier time digesting it.
Yes.
Yeah. Because it is a lot to, you know, take.
Could you see making a film or writing a novel based on your story?
We'd love to make a film, and we're taking donations to make it happen, so write MTV.
Yeah.
In a lot of ways, the album is like a film soundtrack with various background noises and voices. What was it like putting those sounds together for you?
Sheer hell.
That was actually a real highlight of making the album. You know, we sort of had these... it was sort of scripted on paper initially. We had these ideas in our head of how we wanted to create segues in between the songs, and it was real interesting to try and you know, just take these things off of paper and really make them audio realities. For instance, there's one section on the record, well, the opening of the record, for instance, there's a hospital scene where the main character, Nikki, has been... It sort of begins at the end of the story and works its way back around again, but he's sitting in this isolated room under observation at this hospital, and so we went about creating, you know, effects that sounded like, you know, a hospital, and you could follow the nurse's footsteps down the hall into the room, and we had a TV broadcast going on, a news broadcast that we created, you know, with our own newscaster that we wrote his script, you know, and put it together and had him, you know, off in the background. Nicky is watching himself on TV and watching these horrible things that have got him to this isolation ward at this hospital. And it was very, very challenging to put that all together, and we had fun placing it in. I mean, it's a headphone thing, I think. You know, we might have gone a little out there, you know, but our fans that I think really appreciate, you know, CD quality and headphones and things will find all sorts of moments on the album like that where...
Which brings in another question as to why a nurse is wearing spike heels while she's walking down the hallway.
Well, I won't answer
that. It's a fantasy. It's a fantasy.
Yeah. Somewhere I read that you used power window sounds.
Yeah. Well, we had an engineer that was working with us up in Montreal at the studio, and we had the scene in mind of Dr. X pulling up in a car and in the middle of the street, rolling down the window, and telling Nicky to kill Mary, his lover. And so then we had to put it all together, which included using our engineer's car and miking it all up, and our producer, Peter Collins, sitting in the back seat. It's a freezing night in Montreal with snow coming down and everything. And I'm standing outside and carrying on this conversation with him and recording the sounds of the window going down, and you know, it turned out nice.
You said that musically, Operation Mindcrime is less sophisticated than Rage for Order. Was that deliberate?
Well, we were trying to get across, or sort of paint a musical picture that corresponded with the lyrical ideas that were happening. And the whole story is a I don't know, sort of a street level sort of vibe going on. You know, it's not meant to be pretty, you know, and we wanted the music and the lyrics to work together to paint a realistic picture of what was going on. So, you know, everything was very stripped down and
kind of raw.
Yeah, very raw, and give it that New York vibe.
Does it bother you that what sets Queensryche apart and gets you all the critical raise, which is the complexity and intelligence in your music, is the same thing that makes it hard to put you in a nutshell and sell? It's a lot easier to sell something that doesn't have much to it.
Well, I think, you know, you have to really write from the heart as a musician. You know, I think there's a little bit of area where, you know, when business and art meet, there has to be some, you know, give and take on both sides. But we really like to think of our, you know, our music as an artistic statement, and so I guess we sort of cling to that a bit. You know, really trying not to, you know, get too predictable with the things that we do and too much into a formula. And I think people really appreciate that. The fans that have rallied behind Queensryche so far, you know, are really tuned into what we're doing, and you know, our sound is very chameleon-like. You know, I think that we're capable of a lot of different textures in our music, and we try not to go too much in one direction, whatever that may be. You know, Mindcrime had quite a few different musical directions that it was going in, and
but it had a continuity to it that was the sort of stripped down version of Queensryche. You know, we
streamlined.
Yeah, streamlined.
You resisted efforts to give you a pop push. I read that you turned down Desmond Child writing for you, and you wouldn't let them edit Mary down for radio singles. Why is your integrity so important to you when it doesn't seem to be for other people?
I don't think that Desmond Child was actually us turning down an offer. I think that was just, you know, I mean, Desmond Child is obviously been integral in some very fantastic songs. It's just that I think it's going to be really satisfying for us to see Queensryche happen in a big way and have us be, you know, writing the tunes for it. I mean, it's just, I think,
it's an ego thing, really.
I guess. I mean,
it's a challenge, you know. See if we can do it.
It's not that, you know, we wouldn't. I don't know. I think there's nothing wrong with that, certainly, and a lot of bands have you know, made quantum leaps, bringing in outside songwriting, and it's certainly something that's, you know, not condemnable. It's just, I think in our instance, you know, we have a confidence amongst us that it's just a matter of time and you know, commitment to things, and eventually what we're doing and what people want to hear might sort of collide together, and things will happen for us, you know.
How do you think you'll handle it when mass acceptance does come from Queensryche?
We probably won't talk to anybody anymore. Wear shades even at night, and I don't know. We've been doing this for a long time, really, and we've had success in small increments, you know, year after year, and I think it's good for you that way, because you don't have all the attention at once to have to deal with, and it gives you time to grow and get used to it and learn how to handle it, you know. And I don't think we'll be any different. We'll just have bigger bank accounts.
Stop it. No, it's just, I think it's also just a nice feeling to know, when you see bands that, release records and they're reaching a lot of people, it's just a really good feeling to know that many people like what you're doing. I think when we initially started, our very first project, which was done at a neighborhood studio, and it, sold a respectable amount of records. Our first effort took off, and I think we were just all floored to see that, so many people liked what we were doing, sort of our vision of what, songs could be like. It was really great to see so many people responding, and it's just, I think that we would just like to have, there's nothing wrong with more fans. We certainly don't mind that. It's a good feeling, and so we keep trying and trying and trying. Yeah.
You toured this past year with Def Leppard, and now you're out with Metallica. What's it like playing for Lep versus Metallica fans?
I think that it's very similar in the fact that both sets of fans are very dedicated to their band, and they both have very hardcore followings. For us, I think playing on the Leopard stage was a real treat, because it's the first time we'd ever done something in the round like that, and getting used to playing like that is difficult. It probably, by the time we got used to it, it was time for the tour to end, and then we were on a smaller stage with Metallica, and going from a huge stage to a small stage is another sort of thing to get used to. But we've got it down now, and I think we move about the stage pretty comfortably without causing too much damage to ourselves.
Have you got anything particular from working with Def Leppard and Metallica in terms of, music ideas or just anything that...
I think it's very, very interesting. Both bands, have had their own approach to success. It's always interesting. We like to go in and analyze, different situations, and the Def Leppard machine out on the road was really something, to be a part of a very professional organization. And, the way that their success, their records have been, played through the radio media, and, it's really been something that I think the radio especially has helped, and video has helped Def Leppard. And the Metallica situation is something that's much more of almost like a religious cult that has just gotten to monstrous proportions. And it's a different approach, but both approaches can exist, at the same time. And we're somewhere in between there. I mean, our following to this point has been very, very cult-like, but we have had exposure popping up in places and things, so it's real interesting. Both bands have, two very different styles of music, and but it's been, we've been able to relate, I think, to both audiences,
and to both bands. Both bands have treated us really well in giving us, proper sound and lights, and that's good.
It's interesting because they both faced adversity. Def Leppard with, all the trouble they had making that album, and with Rick, and with Metallica, just the ignorance of radio. So they both had to overcome obstacles. Okay. You can tell me again the story of Scott's drum kit. Whose idea was the design?
That was Scott's idea. Actually, that's something that had been brewing for a long time, early on when we very first started. And the official line is that Scott Rockenfield hits his drums so hard that he needs chains to hold it all together. But on a lesser note, I think he just thought that it looked cool. And we happen to know someone that is talented in the welding department, and Scott and Scott and he one day got together and sort of disappeared, sort of like that scene in Chitty Chitty Bang Bang where the doors close, and he emerged a day later, and here was this monster of
this thing that we have to carry around
living
with us.
hell for our crew that has to bring it around and assemble it, you know. But it's nice, you know. It's something unique that Scott, you know, it's his deal. So we got a lot of good compliments on it. It makes for some, you know.
He's only broken one stand so far,
Yeah.
which is amazing.
What other bands do you like to listen to?
Wow.
We sort of run the gamut
Everything.
for music, really. Between the five of us, we have quite a varied musical collection, really.
Yeah, everything from, you know, rock and metal to soundtracks, classical music,
Jazz.
I mean, it's a lot of. We try and, you know, we spend so much time on Queensryche and trying, you know, working on our songs and performing that it's real refreshing to exit that, you know, and for our sanity, I think, at times, you know, to play just something that's, you know, you really doesn't have the same sort of intensity, I think, you know. I mean, a lot of soundtrack music, Scott, you know, our drummer, just is constantly listening to things that have no drums in them. I don't know why.
Last question. What band, past or present, do you wish you could have been in?
Rolling Stones.
Beatles.
Okay, that's it.
That's it.
Did it all on the tape?
Yeah.
Did the end of the line. Great.
All right.
We can do the promo here, actually, because that way it won't look the same as headbangers. Do you want them to stand, Nancy, or do you want to sit? Do you
It's
want
not a
them to
mind
stand?
crime. It's just the best hard rock and metal the
You should
headbangers
split it up.
want.
One of you should do the first line, one of you do the other.
Yeah,
second.
great.
Oh, there's two?
Well, if one of you reads
it's
the
gonna
first
be the
I'll do
line.
the first
yeah.
line, you do the middle two, and I'll do the end. How about that?
Oh, okay, sorry.
I'll do the first line, you do the middle two, and I'll do the end.
So you said.
Right here, this camera.
Okay. Okay, we're set.
I'll give you a count. In 3, 2.
It's not a mind crime.
It's just the best hard rock and metal.
The Headbangers Ball.
Okay. Chris, can you roll
Didn't
up
quite
to the
read
next
that
one?
right, did I?
You want to do it again?
Yeah.
Yeah, can we do that one more time?
Okay, here we go. This camera. 3, 2.
It's not a mind crime.
It's just the best hard rock and metal.
The Headbangers Ball.
One more.
You ready?
Chris, can you roll up?
So,
Do the
You wanna
first
flip
one
the
then.
lines again?
Yeah, you finish it.
No, let me do the
Okay.
first one, you do the second.
here you go.
Ready?
3, 2.
It's no mind crime.
It's just the Headbangers Ball.
That one's going to be cool, right before top of the hour. Okay, great. That's it for promo. So now,
that's it, we'll move on.
now forget all the serious stuff. Now it's
Be all over the radio and all over the cable. Okay. Here we go. Seems to me that loneliness and despair are major themes or elements of Empire, like Unrequited Love and Jet City Woman, Another Rainy Night. I mean, the list is endless. Has that despair eased at all with success for you guys?
No, it's intensified because we have to spend much more time away from home and our families and friends. So it's the same old story, you know, gone for months at a time, you know, long-distance love affairs, that kind of thing.
Interesting topics, so you're right about, I can relate to them. Now, I'm sure you guys are sick of this question. Do you feel pressure now to top the lofty heights of silent lucidity?
Well, I think,
Do you?
I think Silent Lucidity has turned out to be, you know, certainly a door opener for us, and as was, you know, we've dealt with a lot of these sort of steps over the course of the band's career, and I think, you know, its venture into commercial hit radio land, you know, or see it top 40 for that matter, is, you know, not something that we're going to become obsessed with. You know, Queensryche always finding a place in the top 40 radio heavens, as it were. I think, it'll be something that, we'll appreciate and respect when it comes, but I think that, we focus on creating albums, and while I think a lot of our material can make that crossover, we're not going to make that a focal point as far as objectives or goals for Queensryche, to rack up that sort of thing. I think we're an album-oriented band. That's really sort of where our feet are as far as that goes. But hey, we'll take a top 10 single when it wants to come our way.
Congratulations, too, by the way, on the album. And Silent Lucidity has a special place in my heart because we went on it early at the station, and my father-in-law passed away in November, and it was just one of those things where we used to send the song out to him when he was in the hospital, really on a personal level. It's really special.
Well, we hope it added a different sort of flavor to Top 40 radio anyway,
Oh, definitely.
Not often do you find a top 10 song about dream control.
Can you explain it for me, for, the simple people like myself that may not understand what lucid dreaming is all about?
Well, it's the process of becoming aware of the fact that you're in the dream state and taking control of the dream and shaping it. Lucid just means aware, so lucid dreaming is actually the process of just being aware of the fact that you're dreaming. So the song is topically about dream control and lucid dreaming, but the storyline is about a child that loses someone, very close to him, and is having to deal with how realistic the emotion seems waking up out of a dream, and a parent figure trying to explain, what the subconscious is to a young child, which would be, I'm sure, quite a task for any parent, So that's kind of in a nutshell what the song's about.
Now, I love Peter Collins, and I've been listening to his production work from Nick Kershaw to Rush. It's sort of like a signature style on Mindcrime and Empire as far as production work goes. Can you describe your relationship with Collins in the studio, and how'd you hook up with him?
We hooked up with Peter through our management, who suggested us talking to him. And he flew out to Seattle and spent a couple days, and we just sort of discussed our goals as a band. And he seemed to fit right in with sort of the scheme that we were laying out, and thought he could augment our production with his talents. And
he was English.
Yeah, he was English. Bottom line, he said yes to everything we wanted to do. So we said, yes, he's our man. And when we got into the studio, it really, I think we really realized that it was a good choice that we'd made, because he's very economical in the studio, which means we had quite a bit of pre-production rehearsals to tighten up the band and really communicate as to what we wanted to do with the Mindcrime album, which was very involved for a first-time band producer team. And it really turned out well. We really worked well together. He kept us on budget, on time, and which is what we need, because we get fairly out there describing the sort of room that you're listening to the music in, and how big it should be, and how many steps it takes to get across the room. Little details like that we sort of go overboard on, and Peter's looking at his watch going, come on, come on, come on.
So you were familiar with his production work before you walked in the room?
Yeah, we'd heard some of the things he'd done with Rush, and they gave him a good recommendation, so I thought, oh, what the hell, we'll talk to the guy.
Think you'll use him for the next one?
Possibly.
Okay, we're ready to go? Are you guys familiar with Rammschnitt? Does that mean anything to you?
No.
It's funny, because I've been listening to music a long time, and I'm not that old, but it's a German band, a progressive 70s band that never made it here, and I sort of see some parallels, so I was wondering if anybody listened to that band at all.
I thought it was a liquor or something.
Yeah, beer. A beer, probably. That's Grolsch.
Yeah.
That's Grolsch.
Okay, well, on a related note, I feel in radio sometimes a band's success seems to bring out the critic vultures and also sometimes the worst in fans. How do you feel about the comparisons to Pink Floyd? Because oftentimes they get a call and say, these guys sound like Pink Floyd. And I sort of get pissed off with that, because you guys have a great sound, an original style,
Mm.
and I was just wondering how you feel about it. It's got to be gratifying.
I'll answer that question. I think what has happened is that this album, and Silent Lucidity in particular, has reached a whole new group of people that have never heard of Queensryche before. So they are faced with not only these people who haven't ever heard of us, but fans as well are trying to figure out where to place us, what sort of category. And I think that Lucidity is reminiscent of some of Floyd's material. I don't think that we'll, deny that sort of thing, but, there's a lot of influences that we have channeled into the band's work over time. And I think that in that particular case, Silent Lucidity doesn't really represent the rest of the album in terms of work. I think it's one sort of style or one side of the band. And anyway, I just think that people are trying to, it's very easy when you say, well, what do they sound like, to mention a band. I mean, I think that's the easiest way that people can relate to whether or not they're going to like a band. And at that point in time, we just have to hope that, people will realize maybe that, they're making a comment based on a song, one song, that still, is very Queensryche, but, the influences are coming through a bit there. I think that, as far as we're concerned, we're just happy that we had good taste in who we were listening to when we were growing up, I'd rather have a tune that sounded a little reminiscent of Pink Floyd than, Herman and the Hermits or the Captain and Tennille or something, so.
When we first started out years ago, the writers, in an attempt to categorize Queensryche, were saying that we sounded just like Judas Priest, an American Judas Priest. And then we heard later on, no, they're an American Iron Maiden. That's what they are. Mm. So now, a few years down the road, they're saying that we're an American Pink Floyd. It's just another attempt to categorize and put, our music in a little box. But every time they put it in a box, we just sort of sidestep the box.
Get out of it.
Right.
It doesn't really represent, though, I think the overall picture. I think what people that tune into the band, they really discover we have a very distinct style and something of our own that...
and a varied sort of approach, too, I think.
But we bring in, these influences from the past, and I don't think anybody, we wouldn't deny, certainly, something, I think, in that respect.
A lot of people would call me up and say, well, they sound like Pink Floyd. Not necessarily negatively, but, I often want people to listen to music and from an individual point of view, like, these guys are doing something very original. And that's, I heard none of the Pink Floyd at all. That's why I wanted to ask the question. After creating an empire, what are your imperialistic goals?
Sorry, we were admiring Chris's booth.
Would you like a real shot of them here? That's my $6 shine.
Yeah, that is
we married it
quite
the
shine.
other day. Yes, it does have a nice glow to it.
I'd say that was worth $6.
Sorry,
was it gonna? Our imperial goals?
After creating an empire, what are your imperialistic goals?
Oh, I would say to come up with another record fairly soon.
We're quite enjoying the headlining
Yeah.
tour. That's really the first real benefit of this project, has been that we've finally been able to realize, a dream that we've been thinking about for quite some time, which is carrying our own show everywhere. And we've really put the investment of time and energy and money into this show to present to our fans so that they finally get to see what we're all about from a live standpoint. So that has been the first focus after the album, is this massive tour that we're doing. And then
It's hard for me to think in that perspective, because we've been doing this for a few months now, and I'm fairly bored with it. I'd rather start working on another record, but we have dates booked.
Yes,
so.
Jeff, it's only the first leg, though.
Yes, 2 more to go. 3 more to go, actually. I keep changing the set.
It's an endless cycle.
Coming to
really
the guys and going, guys, let's take this out and spend a few $1,000s and change this here. And they're going, no. Not enough people have seen it like this yet. Can't change it.
I would imagine some pretty inspirational things come out of the sound checks that we were waiting on in front of you. Do you actually do that live, or?
No, we don't even do it properly at sound check. Not all of us
We
know
sort
it.
of amuse ourselves
Yeah.
with
We'd like to think that you could possibly...
play a Stone song.
I heard Sting say that some of the most important things can come out of a sound check. Is that true for you?
No,
No?
no. We're always, I don't know, at least from this point, up to this point, we haven't really been very creative at sound checks. They've been more or less sort of a time to tune in on everyone's instruments, work out little bugs in the sound, and confer with our audio engineers what are the problems to avoid that evening. Buildings like this one we're in now have considerable radio frequencies that come in and mess up our wireless systems, and so it's certain spots on the stage you really shouldn't go, and you have to mark those out and be conscious of them as you're trying to put on a great show for everyone. Don't go here. Although you always go there, can't go there tonight.
Red X's.
And plus, the way that we approach writing is never sort of in the way that you go into a sound check and jam on it together to see if it's working like that. We tend to write just sort of off on our own, and testing something at sound check would never really. I don't know how we deal with that. We always test it on our own recorders and that sort of thing, and we never worry about even performing any of the stuff live until it's all recorded, which is either a very serious mistake we've been making all of our career or something very brilliant.
There's a fine line there somewhere.
Being clever and stupid. I'm not sure where we are in there, but...
You're obviously doing something right. Here's a good one for you. Economic recession seems to be a blessing to the entertainment industry, and people want to escape with movies and music, so therefore I would say it's safe to say you work in a recession-proof business, so to speak. If Empire didn't have its chart success, would you have still resurrected the mind crime theme and gone out on the road with it?